Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back to the show. Today, we are going to talk more about understanding our hormones in our lifestyle medicine episode. This is episode 5. I cannot believe it. Missy, Amy Hunt joining us here live today. We're excited to have them back. Want to wish them all a very happy new year out in Omaha, Nebraska at Simply Bliss Med Spa. So first and foremost, happy new year, ladies. How are we doing?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Excellent.
Great.
Excited for 2025.
Absolutely. This is the time to shine and the time to feel better about yourself and help your body change from inside out. I know we're going to talk about hormones today, but also at Simply Bliss Med Spa, there's plenty of other services that's going to get you back where you want to be and where you want to look with all that they do. Would you mind just giving us a little overview about all the aesthetics that you provide?
Sure. So we provide the injectables. We use 4 major brands: RHA filler, Juvederm, and Restylane fillers, and then we provide the toxins: Botox, Dysport, Daxify, and Jeuveau.
Ooh, never heard of that one.
Yeah, it's a lot like Botox.
Okay.
Of course, we do lots of other services to stimulate collagen and
lasers, threads,
microneedling,
biostimulators.
You name it, they do it. And also,
right.
I know for today, go to simplyblissmedspa.com. That's simplyblissmedspa.com. You can check out their, first and foremost, their January specials. There's some weight loss specials and stuff going on there. But for now, we're going to focus on the hormones and basically what are some of the key hormones that really play an overall, role in our health and well-being, if you don't mind sharing.
Yes, absolutely. So all about the hormones today. So hormones are basically chemical messengers that regulate various functions within the body. It tells our body when to grow. It helps with metabolism, mood, our immune function, and of course, reproductive health. Several of these hormones are crucial players in our overall health and well-being. Some of those that we really look at and kind of focus on here are cortisol, which is your stress hormone. Cortisol is released by your adrenal glands in response to stress. It helps regulate metabolism, blood sugar, immune function, and blood pressure. When you have high levels of cortisol due to prolonged stress, it can lead to negative effects like anxiety, irritability, sleep disturbances, and weight gain. And chronic stress and high cortisol levels can contribute to things such as depression, obesity, and cardiovascular disease. And so that's one of the main reasons we focus on cortisol health. The other one is insulin. So insulin is produced by your pancreas. It helps regulate our blood sugars by promoting the absorption of glucose into our cells for energy. But it also plays a vital role in our metabolism and energy storage. And so the impact on health is when you start to have things like insulin resistance, which is where the body becomes less responsive to insulin. It's a key factor in the development of things like type 2 diabetes. And overall, it can affect weight and metabolism. And then we start looking at your thyroid hormones. So the 2 main thyroid hormones that we look at are your free T3 and your free T4. So what your thyroid does is it helps regulate your body's metabolism, energy production. It's important for overall growth and development. And when you have imbalances in your thyroid hormone, which can be hypothyroidism, meaning too little, or hyperthyroidism, meaning too much, then you can start having things that affect your energy level, your mood, your concentration, even all the way down to the functioning of your heart. Then we get into the main hormones that people start thinking of, like estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. So estrogen plays a key role in female reproductive systems, including, regulating our menstrual cycle, pregnancy, and then the development of the secondary sexual characteristics. But men also have estrogen. They need a little bit, and it plays a big role for them as well. The impact on our health that we look at, for women especially, is as we age and we start losing our estrogen stores or estrogen production within our ovaries, we start having a decline in our bone health, our cardiovascular function is affected, and so is our mood regulation. Low levels of estrogen during menopause can cause symptoms like hot flashes, mood swings, brain fog, memory loss. You also have loss of bone density, weight gain, and you can have some chronic inflammation. And for men, when they have low estrogen, it actually can lead to erectile dysfunction as well as cardiovascular disease. Then we look at progesterone. So progesterone is actually one of the more important, oftentimes forgotten hormone for people. It plays an important role in regulating our menstrual cycles, but it also plays a role in brain health, mood. It also has calming effects for sleep, and it too is important for bone health. And so the impact of low progesterone for females is you can start to have menstrual irregularities and infertility. So not just women during menopause, but perimenopause, early teenage years, going into the teens and 20s, it plays a big role on those things. It also plays a big role, during the menopause and perimenopause phase, you start to have problems where you have insomnia. You're sleeping, but you can fall asleep, but not stay asleep. You start to have weight changes. Hair loss is a big one, and breast tenderness. And then the last and most important one would be testosterone. So testosterone is the primary male sex hormone, but
we need it too, right?
Yes, women also need it too. It's very, very, very
Explain
important.
that. Yeah, because that always confused me. I was always low. Years ago, they gave me some cream to put like in the crease of my arm. And then I never checked it again. Sorry, but I really did. Tell me about the
Yeah,
importance of
so
that for us ladies.
it's important just as much for males as females. You need it for mood, you need it for brain function, you need it for
Is that
well,
for a sex drive too?
for libido. Yep, libido is a big one.
Yep.
When you start to have low levels for both men and women, it can almost affect you the same way. It leads to fatigue, it leads to reduced muscle mass, mood changes. And then in females, the biggest thing is when we go through menopause, perimenopause, you need it to maintain bone density and muscle strength, which is huge. And so we have a lot of older ladies are like, I'm okay. I just want to maybe do some estrogen. But testosterone is very important, and you can stay on these hormones all the way, we age, there's no reason to stop them as long as you're feeling good.
Ooh, all right. Now, by the way, you are a full service. You're there taking the blood, right? You're doing the draw yourself.
We do, yep. So we do all of the lab testing. We look at labs, a little bit differently than most people. We're looking at not just the ranges, but we want you to be within the optimal range. And the optimal range is really truly how you feel. So not just are you high or low, but are you right where we know this is the range where most people feel good and you're getting the best benefit out of those hormones.
All right, I'll interject. That's okay. I'm like, I know we're trying. We're going to try to make this two shows, but we might be able to get through it. So hold on. After testosterone, there's also this growth hormone, right? And like you always hear about the growth hormone for like my children, for the adolescents, I know. But what about as adults? Do we still secrete? Do we need GH?
Everybody needs growth hormone. So growth hormone, the thing about growth hormone is we make it when we sleep, and you only make growth hormone when you're in deep REM sleep, and you have to be in deep REM sleep between the hours of midnight and 2 a.m. So if you fall asleep, and even though you're getting 8 hours of sleep, but if you don't fall asleep until after midnight or 2 a.m., you actually bypass your body's ability to make growth hormone. And that's effective for everybody. As we age, we start to decrease the amount of growth hormone that our body makes. So usually by the age of 30, you really start to see the decline in growth hormone. It's secreted by our pituitary gland, but we need it because it stimulates growth of your cells, your cellular repair, regeneration. It also plays a big role in fat metabolism. It protects muscle growth, muscle support. It's good for recovery. When you have low levels of growth hormone, it can lead, you're talking about kids and teens, it can lead to stunted growth or slowed
Yep.
growth delay. But in adults, you start to see a decrease of muscle tone, and you start to see increased fat accumulations in adults. And so those are the things that we kind of watch for. So we have a lot of growth hormone releasing peptides that we use.
I was going to ask, so do you
Yep.
are you able to give the same exact thing, or is it something that stimulates the growth to the pituitary gland? How
Yep.
does that work?
So growth hormone that you would use for people who truly need it. So my son, for example, actually has growth hormone deficiency. So we are giving him growth hormone
And how old is he?
to help him. He's 15.
Okay.
But he is very small for his age. And so we're trying to stimulate him for growth. But you can also use that same growth hormone in older adults, especially when you're starting to see loss of muscle mass, loss of tone. So you think of kind of those frail elderly men, they would actually do have a lot of benefit from having growth hormone. Growth hormone is kind of hard to, number one, it's expensive, but to get insurance to cover it is very tough. So there's other things like growth hormone releasing peptides that are not as strong, but they do about the same kind of job as growth hormone. And we use it a lot for people who are kind of in the fitness industry, so who are looking to continue to grow muscle mass, need help with recovery, but it also is great for sleep. It's great for hair, skin, and nails. So it's great for weight loss. So it's one that we also can add in for people who are going through our weight loss programs as well.
Which I know you have some specials on too this month, right?
Yes, we do. So our special this month is for new patients. Bring yourself and bring a friend, and you get your first, both of you get your first month of weight loss injections for free. And then we're also pairing in, so our existing customers, we're adding in what we call our hot shots, which is B12 mixed with MIC, which is just some additional amino acids that help increase energy production, so increase fat loss. And gives them a little bit of energy, helps with clarity, just overall feeling good. And so we do a half off special for those.
Awesome.
And then we have,
In 3 months, they get.
if they commit to a 3-month weight loss injections with us, they're getting 4 treatments of our, it's called the Magisculpt, which is a machine that we use. It uses radio frequency to have, what do they call it? Contractions of contracting the muscles, supraventricular contractions. So it contracts the muscle at 100% of its capabilities to grow muscle mass, but it uses the radio frequency, which is a form of heat, to heat up the outside of the fat cells, which makes them kind of break open, and then your immune system comes in and eats up the excess fat. So it helps get rid of some subcutaneous fat while toning and tightening.
Ooh,
So
ooh.
that too is a great addition to weight loss.
Mhm.
All right. I know there's some other hormones on the list. One called leptin I've never heard of. And it's produced by fat cells. Tell me what leptin even is.
Yes. So our leptin is what helps. It's produced by our fat cells, but it helps regulate energy by signaling the brain when the body has enough energy stores. So it plays a role really in appetite regulation and energy expenditure. And so the impact on our health that we would see is when we start to have leptin resistance, which is where the brain doesn't respond to those leptin signals anymore that are being released. That's what leads to what we're seeing: overeating, obesity, and metabolic dysfunction. So when we talk about obesity being a chronic illness or a chronic disease that needs medications sometimes to make the body work the way that it's supposed to, it's because that signaling is lost in there. And so you start to have the changes in leptin and ghrelin. So ghrelin is the other one, that is basically the hormone that tells us to be hungry and to stop eating. So the ghrelin is known as a hunger hormone, and that one itself is produced by the stomach, and it stimulates our appetite. That one plays a role specifically in regulating your body weight and metabolism. And so the impact on the health is when those levels are too high, it can increase hunger. And it can lead to us feeling like we're hungry all the time, that you're never full. And so you hear these people where like, I'm always hungry. I can never seem to get full. And they don't have that appetite suppression. And it's usually because there's that mix up within both of those two hormones that regulate our hunger cues.
We'll move on to the next. Obviously, we're here today talking with the ladies, Amy and Missy from Simply Bliss Med Spa and Wellness. And don't forget to go to the website, simplyblissmedspa.com. You can check out all their information, see their specials for the month. And if you are interested in visiting them, of course, they're located in Omaha, Nebraska. And we're excited today to be talking about health from really the inside out, in a sense. We're working on improving, what's going on internally. And they're doing their own lab work there and helping you with all these hormones we are talking about, and some that I'm learning, some I can't pronounce, but oxytocin is the next one. I
Oxytocin.
know that one.
Yes.
That's
So
the love hormone. Yep.
it's the love hormone, yes. It's released during childbirth, usually, breastfeeding, but it's also a bonding hormone. It plays a role, with women for maternal bonding, but it also plays a role in social relationships and emotional regulation. When oxytocin is low, or well, I guess I should say the impact on health, is that oxytocin can actually reduce stress and
Mhm.
promote feelings of trust and bonding. But those levels, along with all of our hormones, when they're low, you don't have enough of that oxytocin. And sometimes that's truly what causes people to have trouble with connecting in relationships, struggle with bonding and things like that. But it's also a nice one for couples who are coming in. And usually when we have oxytocin, we want to make sure we do it with the right people, because you can promote some bonding in places that wouldn't necessarily be a good thing. So everybody has to be on board with that one, but that's kind of a nice one, especially during February, that a lot of times we will do some specials on for the month of love.
For Cupid, the guy with the arrows coming next for us. We
That's
hope. We
right.
may need some help though, kickstart with that hormone though for sure. And what about for sleep? And you always hear about melatonin. And that one I think everyone hears about, and you could take it over the counter, but you get it for some food from some foods, right?
Yep, you can get it from some foods. You can get it over the counter. It's often a misunderstood hormone, and that a lot of people, there's different studies that say things like, oh, you don't want to take it because you get too much and you turn off your own body's production, which is not necessarily true. Melatonin is produced by our pineal gland in response to darkness. It helps regulate our sleep-wake
Yeah.
state. And so it's very important for sleep. It plays a key role in promoting sleep and maintaining your circadian rhythm. So a lot of times when we have people come in who they can't sleep, sometimes it is just something as simple as they need some melatonin, but sometimes it's progesterone levels are off, testosterone levels are off. And so they all play a key role when you're regulating it, because it's all a big symphony and it all has to work in unison with each other. Impacts of having a disrupted melatonin production is typically you see people from having poor sleep habits, people who work overnight shifts, night shifts, people who have jet lag, and all of these things can lead to chronic sleep disorders, fatigue. It can also cause a weakened immune system. So it's definitely one that sleep's a big deal. Sleep also helps regulate all of your hormones. So if you're not sleeping, then none of your hormones are going to be balanced. And so that's a big deal. We always get people in here, we want them to sleep.
Yeah.
It's very important.
Well, also tapping, going on to the next on the list, I should say, it's tap over to vitamin D. I always hear, well, I should take my calcium with vitamin D. I don't understand why or what that means, but you're going to explain a little bit about the importance of vitamin D as well, because that's not a hormone, right? But it
It's
kind
not
of,
a hormone technically, but it acts like a hormone in the
okay.
body. So it does help regulate calcium. So that's why they always say take it with calcium. Um, but it helps regulate calcium and phosphate balance, and it supports bone health and immune function. It's also very important for our mood health as well. And when you have it at levels that are appropriate. So I like my people, their vitamin D needs to be between 80 and 100. And when you get it up that high, that's going to help with regulating mood. It's also going to help with regulating chances for insulin resistance, or if you have insulin resistance, it helps there as well. When you have low vitamin D, it leads to, of course, like bone disorders, osteoporosis, but the biggest thing is weakened immunity, muscle weakness. It plays a big role again, like I said, with mood regulation, and especially in the winter times when we're not outside, we're not getting that direct sunlight. You definitely need to supplement with vitamin D. And it has to be vitamin D3.
Yeah, that's where I get confused too. Yeah, the D with the little three. Yeah,
Yep.
tell me
Yep.
about
And if
that.
you're taking anything over 5,000 international units, which you should be, you want to make sure you're pairing it with K2. So K2 just helps it stay within the cells and absorb a little bit quicker. D3 is just the active form. So it doesn't have to break down, because all of our hormones, they need extra things to help them break down so you get them in their active form. And so the D3 is already broken down so you can absorb it a lot faster. And then the K2 keeps it within the cell so you're actually getting all of what you need.
Great. So again, it's maintaining a variety of all these, or balance, I should
It
say, of
is,
all
it's
these
a
hormones
balance.
overall. And I just got to ask this because how often should you be repeating your labs, right? Because bodies are changing, right? So do you come in for the labs and then you put them on a protocol of some sort, I'm assuming. And then
Yeah.
when do you test again? Is it 6 months? Is it less? Is
You
it
know, it's usually, it depends on
year?
what we're doing, it's specifically for the patient, but
Okay.
typically, I usually recheck labs between 8 and 12 weeks.
Oh,
And
okay.
then
That's
we do it every, 8 or 12 weeks, depending on if you're on injectables versus orals versus creams.
yeah.
Some of them take a little bit longer for you to get the uptake and see the benefit of balancing out those hormones. But most of the time, it's every 12 weeks until we get to a steady state. And then once
Okay.
we're at a steady state and we're not making any more changes, then you can go 6 months. And sometimes, like if we're not making a lot of changes, I'll even let you go almost a whole year without doing labs. But, if things come up, if symptoms change, we're always checking labs to make sure that what we're doing is working. And if we have to make any changes from there, we do.
Got it. Well, what about if our hormones are imbalanced and they're off? How is that affecting our energy and our mood?
Oh, it plays a huge role in all of those things. So imbalanced hormones, they can have a profound effect on our energy levels, our mood, our overall quality of life, because our hormones are what regulate our critical body functions.
Hmm.
Imbalances can manifest as within our energy levels, within our mood, within our quality of life. For example, low thyroid. So when we say low thyroid, that means hypothyroidism. The energy levels that we start to see, it can cause, or problems with energy level, I should say, causes fatigue, sluggishness, decreased stamina. You oftentimes have difficulty concentrating, which we say brain fog. And you have reduced physical endurance. You just don't have the energy or the cares to do the things that you once enjoyed doing. If you have the opposite end, which would be hyperthyroidism, so too much thyroid
Okay.
hormone, that can lead to hyperactivity, restlessness, fatigue due to the overstimulation of the body. And most of the time, people say they feel wired and tired. They have difficulty relaxing and sleeping. Um, and then we look at, okay, so adrenal glands. So cortisol, we talked about cortisol as one of those hormones that we watch for imbalances. If you have high cortisol levels, which are typically due to chronic stress, which most of us have these days,
Yep. All of us.
um, that leads to being like you're feeling on edge, or it's going to lead to burnout. When you have low cortisol, it's the complete opposite, where you have extreme tiredness, lack of motivation, can't get out of bed. So you're not having those spikes of cortisol, which give you that energy. And then we look at things like insulin resistance and diabetes. Those two play a role in energy levels. So when
Interesting.
we have, imbalances within our blood sugars, they cause energy crashes and fatigue throughout the day.
Wow. And of course, our mood. Let's end on mood today because I
Yeah.
know we have a lot more to talk about and it does affect the overall quality of life in general. But let's talk a little bit about mood, right? Because you mentioned estrogen and progesterone. And those are the things I know the gynecologist is testing for, but I don't really understand what that all means. Can you break it down for us?
Yes, ma'am. So estrogen and progesterone are important for mood. Estrogen imbalances, they are the ones that are mainly contribute to mood swings, irritability,
Mhm.
feelings of anxiety, even some depression. Low progesterone does the same thing. It can lead to anxiety, difficulty sleeping, and also exacerbate those mood issues. So a lot of times when we have females come in and they have had a hysterectomy, in the past they were always told, well,
Yeah.
because you don't have a uterus, you don't have to worry about taking progesterone. And that's actually not true. Progesterone is
Hmm.
the calming hormone. It calms down. It's like the good sister to the bad sister. So estrogen can be our bad sister if it's not balanced correctly with progesterone. So you actually need them to balance out each other to get that synergistic
Yeah.
effect.
My girlfriend had a hysterectomy, so I know she has to take all that stuff. I learned a little bit from her.
Yes, and it's
And
a big deal. And sleep is the biggest thing that you notice when those levels, both of them are off, but you also start to get hair loss. And so when you look at older ladies who have been in, post-menopause for many years and they have that thinning hair, it's typically because of low progesterone levels.
and minoxidil can't cure everything. I've been trying. It hasn't
No,
helped
yeah,
me yet, but I've been on that now. Going to the
yeah,
gut. Yeah,
yeah,
it's fun, but it doesn't
yeah,
work. Yeah.
yeah.
Testosterone, I know we touched upon. We'll bring that up again, but you mentioned low testosterone in men and women can also lead to that irritability, that depression, lack of motivation, and even sex drive too. And
Yep.
let's talk a little about thyroid and cortisol, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so hypothyroid, we kind of talked about hypo and hyper. So hypothyroidism is often linked to depression, and
Hmm.
hyperthyroidism is linked to anxiety and irritability. So definitely we need to be looking at both of those. And then cortisol levels. So again, high cortisol levels are going to contribute to anxiety, mood swings, while low cortisol are going to result in apathy and depression. So important to balance all of our hormones out.
Hmm.
And then last but not least, we have our neurotransmitters, which are serotonin and dopamine. When you have any kind of hormonal imbalances, they can disrupt the production of these neurotransmitters, and
Yep.
that is going to affect your overall happiness and motivation. So that's why it's so important to look at everything as a whole symphony together. Everything needs to be working appropriately together. And that's why you need to come and see us and have a whole comprehensive lab panel drawn so
Great.
we can dig into the reasons why you're not feeling like yourself.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Tell us quickly how we can reach you. I apologize. We're out of time. Tell us the
You can
website.
reach us, yes, at simplyblissmedspa.com. We're also on Facebook and Instagram at Simply Bliss Med Spa. Omaha, Nebraska, our phone number is 402-502-9868.
Thank you so much, ladies. Always a pleasure having you. Happy New Year again. And we'll finish
Yeah.
this up next show, okay? Good
All
topics,
right.
good
Thank you so much.
conversation,
Have a good day.
making me think, darn, I need to get this done. Thank you so much.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home.
that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.